Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining today. So if you clicked on this video, it is because you feel like you have flat paintings and you want to know how to fix that. Let's hop right in. If you have flat paintings, I promise you that you have issues with one, if not all three of these things. The first of which is going to be your values. Values are one of those hidden gems in a painting that speaks volumes. I honestly think when you're in a museum of artwork and that one painting stops you in your tracks, I 100% believe that that is because of values. I've heard from someone before that color gets all the credit, but value does all the work. And that could not be more true. We all think that color is what gives things dimensionality and atmospheric sense and distance and all of these things. Color's fun, don't get me wrong, but it is not the king of realism. Your values are. But basically, it is just how light or dark a color is. Now, I could spend an entire video talking about just values alone and all the rules that apply to them to give you this atmospheric depth, but really, if you're using things like color checkers or one of those value cutouts that you can match up on top of your painting, or if you're turning your images black and white so that you can see value better, all of these things are tools that allow you to see value more accurately. And I can promise you, when you key in and are putting your values first, you're going to notice a huge difference. With that alone, there's a good chance they're no longer going to look as flat. However, the next one we talk about is probably just as important, and that is edges. I've said this in other videos, but I feel like edges are like the last level boss that all artists have to conquer, whereas your first level boss is kind of drawing in proportion, your second level boss is value and color, but third level boss is edges. And that is because while theoretically, I think a lot of us understand the concept of lost and found edges, it can be really hard to know where and when and how to most effectively use that in your painting to convey this depth and dimension. Again, I could spend a whole video talking about this alone, but basically what you want to be looking at is where you can soften edges so that you really bring attention into your focal point. And that is where the most detail is going to be. That is where your hardest lines are going to be found, because you really want the eye to be drawn and see all the detail and clarity in there, and you want it to kind of relax around the rest of the painting. And of course, with things that you want to push back, having softer edges there, anything that kind of like disappears in shape, you want to have soft edges there, and just utilize these concepts in tandem with the fact that focal points should have the most detail and hardest edges, and you can really use edges to tell a story of what the underlying construction of whatever subject you're painting is. And the last one we're going to talk about is halftones. This is another big, hefty concept in art. Again, something that I think we theoretically are aware of, or maybe we're aware of it without even knowing it. So it can be harder to put in our paintings because we just kind of take it for granted. But crash course on them: as an object is turning away from light, that value is exponentially going to drop off. So it's going to get darker at an exponential rate. I don't need to go into the mathematics of it, but faster and faster and faster and faster, it drops off. And that is important to remember, because that rate at which it drops off basically instructs our eyes and brains on what the shape of the object is. For example, the difference between a circle or a square, whereas a square, if light's shining on it, you're going to have a plane. On a circle, you're going to see that gradation as it goes into shadow, and that gradation is exactly what halftones are, and they are everywhere in the world. So once you draw your awareness to it and start practicing adding those in, you're going to see an enormous uptick in your ability to paint realism and capture that realistic sense of depth and atmosphere. All right, guys, thank you so much for joining. I hope you enjoyed this, even though it was short and sweet. If you want kind of a more in-depth video on each one of these topics, let me know. Tell me in the comment section below. But as always, thank you so much for joining, and I can't wait to see you in the next one.